An incredible act of kindness. How one elderly woman's selflessness saved a family and transformed Pinewood. Eleanor stood peering out her kitchen window, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee hanging in the air like a comforting hug. She had always found solace in her daily routines, but today felt different, heavy in a way she couldn't quite shake off. A newspaper article lay sprawled across the table, the headline blaring a mix of admiration and skepticism about her recent support for the struggling Johnson family. Was it enough to help, or would her actions lead to more questions than answers? Eleanor's heart pounded. She could sense the whispers creeping through the tight-knit town of Pinewood, each hushed voice a fragment of doubt piercing through her cherished reputation. Eleanor had always prided herself on her integrity. To her, helping the Johnsons felt like the right thing to do. The father laid off, the mother juggling too many jobs just to stay afloat. Their struggles echoed her own from decades ago. Yet the moral weight of her decisions began to smother her. What if the townsfolk thought she was acting out of self-interest? The lines between generosity and reputation blurred painfully in her mind. Her stomach churned as she thought about her late husband, his words echoing in her head. Always be ready to uplift those who need it, Eleanor. But helping the Johnsons had become a double-edged sword. As she spent evenings tutoring their children, she felt joy blossoming inside, a reminder of the youthful faces she once taught. However, each time one of the children called her Miss Eleanor, a wave of guilt followed. Was she a mentor or merely a meddler? And the louder those whispers grew, the more her chest tightened. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Eleanor felt as though the scrutiny of the entire town rested on her shoulders alone. One frail woman trying to bridge a gap she couldn't entirely understand. Whenever she crossed the once inviting street to the Johnsons' modest home, anxiety bloomed like a weed in her garden. Would she hear the whispers again? What did she gain? They questioned, the looks in their eyes holding her accountable, demanding clarity she wasn't ready to provide. The thought of their judgment left her breathless, drowning in isolation. Her mind raced through a myriad of choices. Should she step back from the Johnsons to preserve herself? Or should her compassion push her to take a stand, declaring her commitment to their well-being? Each decision felt like treading water, her resolve waning with every wave of doubt that crashed against her. The more Eleanor thought about withdrawing, the more the weight of the children's hopeful smiles pulled her back. But what will they do? She wondered. The desperate situation of the Johnsons puncturing her conscience. The phantom pain of judgment clawed at her insides, leaving only anguish in its wake. Night fell heavy outside, shadows weaving through the silent streets of Pinewood. Eleanor's heart beat with urgency, caught between the remnants of a legacy formed on selflessness and a crippling fear that her actions might ultimately ruin the very fabric she had woven through a lifetime of teaching, a thread now fraying with uncertainty. Would she uphold her commitment, or would she endanger her reputation in the process? The path ahead was murky, but one thing was clear. There was no turning back. As she faced the darkness outside, her resolve flickered, battling against the looming shadows of her internal conflict. Eleanor took a deep breath, attempting to summon the confidence that felt increasingly elusive. The weight of her choices pressed against her chest like a stone, but she knew that stepping into the Johnsons' home the next day was inevitable. Beyond the shadow of judgment, her heart recognized a deeper truth. This family needed her, and there was power in her willingness to engage, no matter the repercussions. She spent that evening ruminating over the turbulent landscape of her emotions, pouring herself into her old journal. Writing had always been her sanctuary, a place where she could navigate through her tumultuous thoughts. "How did I get here?" she penned, the ink flowing as swiftly as her racing mind. Each word felt like a revelation, a way to confront the disruptive whispers. The arrival of dawn brought with it a sense of resolve. As Eleanor donned a simple blue cardigan, her favorite, it felt like a protective layer, shielding her from the chill of self-doubt. She decided to visit the local grocery store first, a ritualistic stop before heading to the Johnsons'. Stocking up on essentials for the children felt righteous. It framed her intentions while reinforcing the notion that her involvement was not about public perception, but rather about tangible support. Navigating the aisles, Eleanor filled her cart with fruit, bread, and a few treats, little gestures she felt might light up the children's faces. Yet, as she moved through the store, the conversations between other shoppers floated through the space like shadows, reminding her of the pervasive scrutiny she felt so intensely. "Did you hear about Eleanor?" one woman whispered. "She thinks she's a saint for helping that family, but what does she really know about their struggles?" Each remark lodged in her mind, reawakening the pangs of uncertainty. Shouldn't generosity require a certain understanding of those we aim to help? Was she, in her own way, patronizing the Johnsons by assuming she could solve their problems with a few groceries and a flicker of kindness? Arriving at the Johnsons', Eleanor hesitated on the porch, her hand poised to knock, floating in an indecisive limbo. She felt a swell of responsibility mixed with fear, battling within her like two opposing forces, constantly trying to gain ground. The familiar sound of laughter trickled through the open window, igniting a warmth that tugged at her heartstrings. With a firm resolve, she finally knocked. Soon, the door swung open, revealing Marco Johnson, his fatigue giving way to surprise at seeing Eleanor standing there, armfuls of groceries spilling into her grasp. The tension slid from her shoulders as his face broke into a grateful smile. For a fleeting moment, recognition washed over her. This was the reason behind her efforts, the connection formed through shared struggles, not the judgment from outsiders. "Miss Eleanor, you didn't have to," one of the children exclaimed, eyes sparkling with curiosity and joy. "I wanted to," she replied, her voice steadier than she anticipated. The decision to step forward was liberating, a moment where her intentions no longer needed to be justified or questioned. As the children clamored around her, Eleanor felt a surprising rush of confidence. Perhaps she was not only a temporary figure in their lives. Perhaps, slowly, she was reshaping her identity back into someone who could embrace uncertainty while standing firm in her values. That afternoon, amidst laughter and chaotic energy, Eleanor caught a glimpse of something larger than herself. She realized that in the act of nurturing these children, she too was cultivating a familiar ground for her own growth. As she shared stories and smiled, a decision began to solidify in her heart. But what had begun as a mere act of kindness would demand more from her than she imagined. Her reflection in their laughter revealed deeper layers of herself she had kept hidden for too long. The moment of realization left her breathless, suddenly aware that the whispers might not be the only thing shaping her path. Tomorrow loomed with questions that needed answering, and Eleanor was ready to confront them. Yet a lingering doubt remained, fragile like the last golden leaves fluttering to the ground behind her. Would she become a source of hope rather than a symbol of whispered speculation? The truth felt tantalizingly close, poised on the brink of revelation. As Eleanor returned to the Johnsons' home the following day, the familiarity of that laughter had turned into an echo of purpose. The day felt heavier. An unspoken sense of expectation clung to the air as she approached the door. She recognized a responsibility she had not anticipated, one that extended beyond simple acts of generosity. Today, she aimed to solidify her role within the lives of these children, not just as a kind neighbor, but as a steady presence that could help form their future. "Good morning," she called out as Marco opened the door, welcoming her into the warmth of their chaotic household. Eleanor felt the edges of her anxiety softening in the midst of their lively atmosphere. Children's voices threaded through the air, rising and falling like music as they scampered about. She had grown to appreciate this chaos, seeing in it the vibrant potential for growth and connection. As the children gathered around her, their attention drawn to the colorful assortment of snacks she brought, Eleanor allowed herself a moment to breathe deeply. Yet the questions that had haunted her since yesterday resurfaced with relentless clarity. Was she truly capable of fostering change within this family's life, or was she merely playing a role that would leave her and them disillusioned? "Can we have a picnic?" a little girl named Mia asked, her eyes wide with eagerness. Eleanor hesitated, weighing the implications of such a request. A picnic might require planning, providing a structured escape from the underlying struggles the family faced. The fleeting thought of failure flickered through her mind, but it was quickly replaced by a cautious optimism. "Absolutely, let's do it." The decision ignited a spark within her. Organizing a picnic felt significant, an opportunity to break through the walls of her confusion and to explore the potential connections they could forge. She envisioned the children's laughter and the simple joy of being outdoors. Yet the thought of what lay ahead, the planning, the logistics, made her stomach churn. Amidst the flurry of excitement, Eleanor sought moments to bond with the children, reveling in their unfiltered enthusiasm. As the afternoon unfolded, she found herself drawn into conversations that revealed snippets of their lives, glimpses of both their joys and struggles. She listened carefully, noting the underlying themes of resilience and hope that emerged from their words. Yet there were cracks in the facade. Subtle shifts in the children's expressions hinted at complexities she had not fully understood before. When one child spoke of dreams, another would quietly interject with worries of the future. Eleanor began to see the dichotomy of innocence and anxious awareness in each of their faces. As the sun began to sink, casting a golden glow through the window, Eleanor grasped something vital. Her relationship with them was not simply about providing, it would also require vulnerability and honesty. She needed to confront her own insecurities, the doubts that had perpetuated her hesitation. Could she share her own stories, her imperfections, without fear? Gathering her courage, Eleanor suggested they share secrets. "I'll go first," she announced, her heart racing as she waded into deeper waters. "When I was younger, I was really scared of failing. Like, really scared." The words felt heavier than she expected, laden with the gravity of exposure. To her surprise, the children listened intently, their attention riveted. As she continued, revealing both triumphs and failures, the atmosphere shifted into a cocoon of trust. Each child began to offer their own stories, laying bare insecurities and hidden strengths. Eleanor felt transformed. What had begun as a simple act of kindness blossomed into a landscape of mutual growth and exploration. They were all students in this experience, learning, teaching, and expanding their horizons together. But the night's shadow brought a new reality. Eleanor sensed that this bond, while enriching, was tethered to the challenges lurking beyond the bounds of their newfound connection. Each story shared unveiled the layers of pain and struggle that existed just beneath the surface. As they wrapped up the evening with laughter, Eleanor realized she must prepare for the next steps. Would she have the strength to support these children through the hurdles that awaited? Tomorrow, she needed to face her own fears and deepen her role. The time had come to confront the harsh truths of their shared reality and the responsibility that lay both thrilling and terrifying. With each heartbeat, the boundary between her past self and the version she was growing into began to blur. She was finally ready for the next chapter, one that promised to challenge her in ways she had yet to imagine. Eleanor awoke early the next morning, the remnants of last night's emotional revelations still echoing in her mind. She felt a swell of determination, a fire ignited by the vulnerable exchange with the children. Today was the day she would not merely play a role, she would step into her newly defined identity. As she sipped her coffee, each sip was a reminder of the change she hoped to nurture, not just for the Johnsons, but within herself. The logistics of the picnic had seemed daunting at first, but Eleanor had made a list. First on that list was to reach out to a local grocery store for the supplies. She gathered her courage. It was time to step forward, to initiate dialogues that challenged her inherent fears of inadequacy. "You can do this," she muttered under her breath, the mirrors in her kitchen serving as both witnesses and encouragers. She arrived at the grocery store, the bright lights and cheerful produce sections buzzing with life. As she meandered through the aisles, she began to see herself differently. She wasn't just a customer, she was a creator today, a catalyst building an experience for the Johnson family. Eleanor approached the store manager, explaining her vision, her newly adopted role, not just as a benefactor, but as someone who believed in the joyous potential of connection. "Sounds wonderful. Let's see how we can make this happen."
A wave of relief washed over her, but she knew the real journey was still ahead. With the provisions sorted, Eleanor made her way to the Johnsons' home, filled with excitement and trepidation. She was reminded of the first time she stepped through the door. Each visit had deepened her understanding of what it meant to be part of someone else's life, and today felt like a tangible commitment. "Eleanor," Marco exclaimed, offering a smile that warmed her heart. "What's all this?" "A surprise picnic," she announced, spreading her arms as if to encompass the home, the family, the budding relationship they shared. The children erupted into cheers, their joy infectious. But as their laughter filled the space, a tightness gripped Eleanor's chest. She was stirring up hope, hope that had the potential to turn fragile at the first sign of difficulty. Setting a time for the picnic was simple, yet it carried unspoken complexities. "What if it rains?" she thought, recalling her own childhood fears of plans fizzling away amidst unforeseen circumstances. What if they don't enjoy it? A challenge of her newfound resolve lingered in the corners of her mind. As hours melded into one another, Eleanor began organizing the various activities planned: games, storytelling, even a group painting session. The idea of unveiling hidden talents within each child sparked a more vigorous energy within her. If only they could see themselves as she now saw them, vibrant and brimming with potential. But her insecurities resurfaced just as quickly. Each time she set up an obstacle course or gathered supplies, a whisper of doubt nudged at her. "What if they don't like this? What if they think I'm trying too hard?" These self-doubts gnawed at her confidence, like shadows threatening to eclipse her bright ideas. And yet, with each game she organized, she found herself moving further away from those doubts. She observed Mia's laughter as she tossed a ball to her brother. She listened to Marco's contagious enthusiasm. Eleanor realized that her original intent, offering kindness, had blossomed into mutual trust that both she and the children shared. She knew, just knew, that to truly support them, she would have to continually shed her fears, learning to trust in both them and herself. But the reality of her exchange with these children meant continuously unearthing her vulnerabilities. As the day drew to a close and evening crept upon them, Eleanor took a deep breath. The picnic had been a success. Yet there was a lingering awareness of battles yet to fight, the raw challenges that life would inevitably throw at the Johnsons, and her part in it. Tomorrow loomed ahead, promising more explorations into their realities. How will I support them when the shadows of their struggles rise? The question loomed, persistent and urgent. Eleanor's heart raced. Something deeper was awaiting revelation, and she needed to be ready for the truths that could shake her understanding of kindness and connection. A new chapter was beginning, one that would demand the ultimate test of her commitment to both herself and the Johnsons. Eleanor awoke the next morning, her heart heavy with anticipation. The sun streamed through her window, yet it did little to dispel the shadows looming in the corners of her mind. She had connected with the Johnsons, but now what? The moments of joy from yesterday clashed with a stark realization: kindness could be an uncomfortable confrontation. She needed to confront what it truly meant to be a pillar of support for a family facing their own struggles. After a quick breakfast, Eleanor decided to reach out to some community resources, hoping to galvanize support for the Johnson family. Each call was a lesson in perseverance. She dialed the number for a local support group, barely managing to calm her racing heart as the phone rang. When a voice finally answered, she hesitated, unsure if her desire to help resonated beyond her own insecurities. But she had made a commitment, and now it was time to act. "Hi, I'm Eleanor. I'm looking for some assistance for a family in need," she stammered. As she spoke, a small part of her felt a rush of empowerment. She was no longer mere background noise. She was actively engaging with those who could provide tangible help. "That sounds like an important step. What specific needs do they have?" the voice asked, empathetic yet probing. For the first time, Eleanor was forced to articulate her thoughts clearly. It was daunting, but liberating. She described Marco's hesitance to engage with peers, Mia's struggles with expressing herself, and their mother's silent burden, each word solidifying her resolve. By the end of the call, Eleanor felt a rush of newfound agency. The contact would connect her with workshops and a mentorship program for the children. With that small victory, she realized that she was beginning to think strategically about this journey, not only discovering the usefulness of community resources, but navigating her role as an advocate. Over the next few days, Eleanor immersed herself in research. The experience was both invigorating and illuminating. With each article she devoured on family dynamics and emotional resilience, her understanding deepened. The knowledge was empowering. It gave context to her feelings of inadequacy and illuminated her path forward. One evening, after a long day of organizing resources, Eleanor returned to the Johnsons' house with a pile of colorful brochures. The children were present, their laughter echoing in the living room. For the first time, Eleanor felt a pang of fear as she realized that her new role with the Johnsons was evolving beyond mere entertainment. She was becoming a steward of change. "Hey there! I found some programs that might really help you both," Eleanor said, spreading the brochures on the table. But as she spoke, she noticed Missy, the Johnsons' mother, suffocated by a silent weariness in her eyes. Eleanor's attempt to foster excitement faltered as she felt an electric current of unease. She wasn't just engaging the children, she was stirring something inside their mother, and the potential for conflict loomed like a storm cloud. "Why would we need this?" Missy's voice came out steady, but Eleanor thought she detected an edge of frustration. "We're managing fine as is." A knot formed in Eleanor's stomach as she recognized a challenge forming. It forced her to wrestle with her motivations. Was her goal truly altruistic, or a need to define her self-worth through their acceptance? Gathering her composure, Eleanor stepped forward. "I believe these resources could empower the kids, give them tools to navigate their challenges. But if you think things are fine as is, I understand." The silence hung heavily, and Eleanor searched for the right words, acutely aware of the shifting dynamics. In that moment, Eleanor realized she was at a crossroad. She had committed to the Johnsons' growth, But these intentions might not align with Missy's perspective, and therein lay the challenge of her own identity. Did she have the strength to advocate for change when it meant confronting resistance? As Missy's gaze met Eleanor's, a flicker of comprehension sparked. Eleanor knew the truth. Help could be perceived as a burden when it felt imposed. It was imperative to balance her aspiration to uplift the Johnson family while honoring their agency. The tension crackled in the air, a silent promise that an urgent conversation must take place. Tomorrow loomed, and with it came the urgency for a candid dialogue with Missy. Eleanor's heart raced again, fueled by a potent mix of fear and determination. The question echoed in her mind. Had she forged a bond strong enough to weather the conflicts that come with genuine connection? Each answer awaited revelation, and she knew that this new chapter was only beginning. Eleanor entered the Johnsons' home the next day, an invisible weight settling on her shoulders. The air was thick with unspoken words, and she knew that Missy was bracing for an uncomfortable conversation. Steeling herself, Eleanor glanced at Marco and Mia, who were absorbed in their games, blissfully unaware of the underlying tension. "Missy," Eleanor began, her voice wavering slightly, "can we talk for a moment?" She watched as Missy's face shifted, suspicion mingling with fatigue. Taking a deep breath, Eleanor prepared to navigate this delicate conversation. "About what you said the other day," Eleanor continued, tender yet firm. "I know you feel like everything is fine, but I want to understand what you and the kids are experiencing. This help isn't about me. I genuinely believe it could mean something for Marco and Mia." Every word felt like a tightrope walk, and Eleanor was acutely aware that any misstep could sever the fragile connection she had forged. Missy's eyes narrowed, contemplating Eleanor's earnestness. "We appreciate your concern, but we're doing just fine. I don't want to feel like a charity case." The words cut through Eleanor like a sharp wind, exposing her own vulnerability. She recognized the defensiveness in Missy's tone. It reflected her own past insecurities, a reminder that seeking help could be a hard pill to swallow. "I completely understand that instinct to protect your family," Eleanor replied, her voice steady, searching for solidarity. "But sometimes it takes strength to reach out, to admit that we don't have all the answers." The words flowed from her. She was no longer an outsider trying to insert herself into their lives. She was sharing a lifeline, one that had once felt fragile to her, but now anticipated by her own revelations. The silence was palpable as Missy absorbed Eleanor's sincerity. With a slight frown, she finally broke the stillness. "What if I don't want the kids to change? What if they just need time?" The conflict was evident in her conflicted gaze, which shifted between her children and Eleanor. "I don't want them to change who they are, Missy," Eleanor pressed on, her passion ignited. "I just want to give them the tools to build themselves up in their own ways." Each sentence fortified her commitment, and she felt a rush of confidence building as she articulated her intentions clearer than ever. Missy's posture softened slightly, yet the unease remained. "Those tools, they sound fancy, but my kids are already special." Eleanor noted the way Missy was holding back, caught between the fear of vulnerability and the desire for support. The flicker of willingness in Missy's eyes told Eleanor that deep down she was teetering on the edge of acceptance. "What if I came to those workshops with you?" Eleanor proposed impulsively, her heart racing at the idea. "We could see what it's about together. You wouldn't be alone in this, I promise." The thought was a leap into the unknown, a willingness to confront not only Missy's resistance, but her own fears of inadequacy as well. The tension shifted slightly as Missy mulled over Eleanor's offer. Grudging curiosity mingled with skepticism, and Eleanor discerned an acknowledgement that perhaps stepping outside her comfort zone could be a collective venture. "Why would you do that?" Missy asked, her voice tinged with both astonishment and caution. The underlying questions analyzed Eleanor's motives, cutting deeper than mere disbelief. "You don't even know us that well." The truth echoed in Eleanor's mind. She was searching for purpose and connection, but in this moment it had morphed into something greater. "Because I see potential in every one of you, and I see how hard it is to ask for help. If we can do it together, it might empower us both." Missy regarded her with cautious contemplation, the silence unraveling into an opportunity for a transformative moment. Eleanor held her breath, waiting for Missy's response, feeling both hopeful and terrified of the path that could unfold from this conversation. "Okay," Missy finally replied, the weight of the word punctuating the moment. "Let's give it a shot." As the conversation shifted toward tentative plans, Eleanor felt a mixture of elation and trepidation. The pivot toward collaboration was a breakthrough, but the challenges ahead loomed larger than life. Had their conversation truly cemented the trust Eleanor craved, or were the doubts merely dormant, waiting for the right spark to ignite them once more? With newfound resolve, Eleanor knew the road ahead would test her commitment deeply. The workshops awaited, and her fears of inadequacy might just emerge again. Tomorrow's first session was just around the corner, and with it came not only the promise of growth, but the risks of vulnerability. In the quiet aftermath of their conversation, Eleanor's heart raced with anticipation and trepidation. The next chapter loomed closer, carrying with it the uncertainty of what true change demanded. Would she be ready to face the struggles that lay ahead? The morning light filtered through the Johnsons' kitchen window, illuminating the cluttered countertops and the table where Missy had hastily left half-finished breakfast. Eleanor stood there, her fingers nervously tracing the grain of the wooden surface. The promise of the workshop weighed heavily on her mind. Doubts flickered through her thoughts like shadows, threatening to cloud the anticipation she had felt just hours prior. What if she failed to assist Missy and the kids? What if her attempts to understand and engage only drove a wedge further between them? As she poured herself a cup of coffee, the aroma did little to quell her anxiety. This commitment to the workshops wasn't just an obligation, it represented a shift in her life, a chance to reclaim a sense of purpose she had lost along the way. The image of Missy's guarded expression lingered, reminding Eleanor that every connection required a willingness to expose oneself to discomfort. Emerging from her reverie, Eleanor recognized that the path would not only entail facing Missy's skepticism, but grappling with her own vulnerabilities. She had once been a child in need of assistance. Now the gravity of her offers felt daunting. In a calculated effort to fortify her resolve, Eleanor decided to prepare for the day's challenges. She began to jot down ideas and strategies that she hoped would resonate during the session. The act of mapping out her thoughts transformed her unease into focus. With each idea penned down, her insecurities began to lose their grip, replaced by a burgeoning confidence. Yet the nagging question remained: was she genuinely equipped for this role?
With a deep breath, Eleanor headed out, each step feeling heavier than the last as she approached the community center. Her vision was engulfed by a field of uncertainty dotted with potential pitfalls. Upon arrival, she noted the animated conversations buzzing within the walls. Others mingled, exchanging their hopes and apprehensions about the workshops that lay ahead. There was a sense of camaraderie among strangers, a shared goal stitching them together. A part of Eleanor longed to join their banter, but felt like an intruder rather than a participant in the collective enthusiasm. Eleanor spotted Missy across the room, her shoulders slightly slumped as she watched Marco and Mia engage in excited play. Eleanor felt the intimacy of that moment, keenly aware that getting Missy involved was about more than engaging in parenting workshops. It was about forging a deep trust. She approached cautiously, reminded of the delicate balance that had shifted the previous day.
"Hey, Missy," Eleanor began, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm really glad you decided to come." Missy's eyes flickered with apprehension. "Thanks, but I still don't know if this is what we need." The avoidance was almost palpable, a wall rebuilt before Eleanor's reach could touch it. "But this could also be a space for you," Eleanor replied, leaning in just slightly. "It's about finding tools, but it's also about sharing experiences." Eleanor felt the urgency of validation. She had to help Missy see the duality of the opportunity, not just for the children, but for herself as well. "I'm not sure if I've got anything of value to share," Missy muttered, her voice barely above the din around them. Eleanor recognized the familiar tone of self-doubt, one she had battled internally as well. "But you do," Eleanor insisted, her heart racing as she committed herself to this moment. "You're here, and that's already a significant step. You've navigated uncertainties before. Perhaps this is just another river to cross together." The stillness that emerged hung heavily in the air as the truth of Eleanor's words unraveled before them both. Missy's guardedness softened ever so slightly, revealing a glimpse of a willing spirit beneath the weight she bore. As the session began, Eleanor felt a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation, both for herself and for Missy. Together, they embarked on a precarious journey of self-discovery, and as Eleanor listened to the facilitator speak, a flicker of clarity ignited within her. Each shared story, each revelation added fuel to Eleanor's growing determination. Perhaps, in helping Missy, she might find pieces of herself she had long neglected. But would the impending challenges threaten to derail their progress? The stakes were still high, and Eleanor couldn't shake the foreboding sense that the real test was just beginning. What truths lay hidden beneath the veneer of this experience, waiting to be unearthed?
As the facilitator transitioned to group activities, Eleanor felt the energy in the room shift. The initial unease began to dissolve as laughter mingled with the sounds of connection. Eleanor's focus narrowed, letting the noise wash over her as she prepared to facilitate her own part of the workshop. She knew that she needed to bridge the gap between Missy's hesitance and this emerging camaraderie. Eleanor seized the moment, proposing a small exercise designed for the participants. "Let's take a moment to share a few things that define us as parents. It could be a value we hold dear, a favorite memory, or even a challenge we faced." She spoke with an authority that caught even her off guard. One by one, attendees began to share. Their stories revealed a tapestry of hopes, fears, and unexpected joys. Eleanor, leaning into her role, found a rhythm within the exchanges. The flow of conversation illuminated an overwhelming truth. Every parent wrestled with doubt, an affliction she knew all too well. When it was Missy's turn, Eleanor held her breath. Would Missy still cling to her wall, or would she let it crumble? Missy's eyes darted as she considered her choice of words. "I used to think I was doing okay," she began slowly, her voice barely breaking through the camaraderie around her. "But then everything spiraled. I didn't know how to cope with Marco's tantrums or get Mia to open up about what she was feeling." Eleanor felt a surge of empathy. Listening to Missy, she was reminded of her own childhood struggles, the feeling of being overwhelmed by expectations, often exacerbated by the isolation of silence. "Thank you for sharing that, Missy," Eleanor encouraged gently. "It's brave to let us see that side of you." As more stories unfolded, Eleanor felt a gradual shift within her. She was not merely a facilitator, but a participant, sharing her discoveries too, revealing her own journey, the journey of re-embracing vulnerability. Missy's unease began to wane, and a glimmer of understanding sparked in her eyes. They were navigating parallel tracks, faced with the same mountains of doubt. After the activity, as the group began to discuss coping strategies, Missy approached Eleanor directly. "I didn't think I could actually share anything today, but I felt lighter. Like maybe I could connect. Eleanor's heart swelled with gratitude for this moment. She realized that as Missy opened up, Eleanor was crafting her own pathway of healing. The foundation of trust they were building started transforming her self-doubt into resolve. This workshop was becoming a shared journey. Yet a nagging concern fluttered in the back of her mind. The conversation had sailed smoothly, but what lay ahead? Would Missy's initial willingness persist in the face of deeper issues? Had they merely scratched the surface of something more profound, something perhaps too heavy to unpack? As the session concluded, Eleanor stepped outside for some air.
The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders. What if, in facing these challenges, she only revealed more of her own insecurities? What if she faltered at the brink of something potentially transformative for both of them? Deciding to address her apprehensions head-on, she glanced back to the room where laughter erupted anew, and Missy stood embracing a slight smile. It may have been a small victory today, but Eleanor sensed the looming confrontation within their shared narrative, a challenge still unaddressed. Would she strive to find the courage to dive deeper with Missy, or would she retreat into the comfort of superficial discussions? The choices ahead pressed down on her, igniting an insatiable desire for growth and the eerie whisper of potential failure. The moment of truth approached. Eleanor felt its pulse, bracing herself for the revelations yet to come. She hadn't just committed to helping Missy, she had committed to confronting herself. What would unravel in their next conversation? Eleanor stood outside for a moment longer, knowing her breath would travel farther into the veritable whirlwind of thoughts swirling in her mind. She felt invigorated yet drained, the duality palpable. She had offered a glimpse of her vulnerability, but now the shadows of self-doubt loomed over her. Perhaps today was just a warm-up act. The real performance lay ahead. As she returned to the group, she noticed Missy perched on the edge of her seat, bracing herself as if the weight of unspoken words was pressing down on her. Eleanor recognized that transitory spark in Missy's eyes. It hinted at deeper layers, beneath the surface, emotions that needed nurturing, yet also a clarity she hadn't seen before. "Do you want to share more, Missy?" Eleanor found herself asking, the question escaping her lips before she could fully engage her reasoning. It was a risk, but one she felt propelled to take. I don't know if I'm ready," Missy admitted, her voice wavering. The hesitance was there, yet beneath it was a current of yearning. Eleanor inhaled deeply, the air thick with unspoken potential. "We can take it slow," Eleanor assured, her tone gently encouraging. "This isn't about pressure, it's about discovery, like we talked about earlier." The room felt charged, an arena where inner battles echoed. Could she transform Missy's uncertainty into courage, or would her own fears leap into the ring, smashing any progress made? Each moment tugged at her, threading anticipation through her veins. "Okay," Missy finally whispered. Eleanor watched as her composure wavered but didn't collapse. It was a small yet pivotal shift. With that single word, the realm of possibilities opened wider. As Missy spoke, Eleanor felt her pulse quicken with every syllable. "It's just hard to admit that I don't have all the answers for my kids. I keep thinking if I just try harder, but it's becoming overwhelming." Her confession drifted through the group, ricocheting off the comfort of shared experiences. Eleanor leaned in, recognizing this moment as a catalyst. It had the potential to breach hidden chasms of doubt. What if trying harder means allowing yourself to lean on others? That simple reflection hung in the air, and Eleanor observed as Missy's search for acceptance conflicted with the uninformed expectations she held. The moment echoed not just for Missy, but for Eleanor herself. Would understanding and community replace the isolation they often clutched? Answers bounced around her mind as Missy continued to speak, revealing more snippets of her fears, her joys, and her struggles.
Eleanor found herself plunging into her own reflections along the way, intertwining their journeys. Each word they exchanged was a gentle push against the facades they both constructed. Eleanor felt swept away by urgency, wanting to erase the jagged lines of inadequacy that splintered her own sense of self. A resolve began to form. She had a choice. She could curate this conversation, steer it into treacherous territory, or she could anchor it with truth. What part of Missy resonated within her? At that moment, she caught herself. This wasn't merely about Missy's healing. It was Eleanor carving her space authoritatively amidst the chaos of fear and doubt. But beneath her growing determination lay remnants of worry. What if Missy couldn't let go of her fears, reverting back to the comfort of silence? What if Eleanor's emerging confidence shattered under the weight of an unacknowledged truth? As the session wound down, Eleanor sensed the group's collective tension simmering, a quiet encouragement swelling in the background. Yet inside, a tempest brewed, one that promised to clash fiercely against all they've unearthed. Only then did it strike her. This was not just about Missy, not solely about her as a facilitator. This was an unveiling of the tighter knots tethered to her own identity. With the stakes escalating, she braced herself, knowing they stood on the precipice of something profound. Would she step forward, relinquish her fears, and confront the deeper truths hiding within? The air crackled with anticipation as both women hovered at the edge of realization. The next conversation would decisively mold their individual trajectories, aligning them against the undercurrents of doubt. What would emerge from the depths of their honesty? Would they rise together, or would the weight of hesitation keep them entangled in fear? Eleanor had awakened to a bright new dawn, her spirit buoyed by revelations after the workshop. She realized that she was no longer just an outsider looking in on the Johnson family. She was becoming an integral part of their story, a chapter filled with both complexity and promise. After her morning coffee, she walked towards their familiar home, no longer shrouded in anxiety, but rather fueled by a sense of purpose. With each step, Eleanor felt more prepared. Rather than merely offering her support, she aimed to foster collaboration with Missy and the children. The challenging discussions ahead no longer terrified her, they invigorated her. She recognized that change rarely came easy, but instead arose from shared commitment and honesty. Today was an opportunity to bridge gaps and spark renewed connections. "Good morning," Eleanor called out, breaking the morning stillness as Marco and Mia rushed to greet her with bright, expectant smiles. Missy lingered behind, pensive but present. The lingering heaviness from the previous conversation created an unspoken awareness between them, yet Eleanor was determined to clear the air. "Missy, can we talk?" Eleanor asked gently, her tone inviting yet serious. She recalled their previous dialogue, threading it into the potential for deeper exploration. Missy hesitated briefly but nodded, her expression signaling uncertainty that governed their relationship lately. "Sure," Missy replied with a cautious sigh as they settled into the living room. Eleanor took a deep breath, grounding herself in clarity. "I know yesterday brought up a lot," she began, carefully choosing her words. "But I want you to know that I'm here for both you and the kids, not just to help, but to support all of you in finding your own paths." A flicker of skepticism crossed Missy's face, yet curiosity twinkled beneath it. "It's hard to rely on someone else when you feel like you should be able to handle it on your own," Missy admitted, vulnerability creeping into her words. "I understand that completely," Eleanor said, aligning her tone to match Missy's honesty. "But I truly believe it takes strength to reach out, just as you are doing now. There's no need to carry everything alone." As Eleanor spoke, she could feel the weight descending, an unburdening burgeoning in Missy's eyes, inviting a deeper dialogue. "What if I don't know how to accept support?"
Missy's brow furrowed as she struggled, a reflection of Eleanor's own past confrontations with vulnerability. "Maybe we could work on that together," Eleanor suggested. "It's okay to not have all the answers. This situation is new for both of us." She felt an urge to share a piece of her own journey, one studded with hesitations and hollow victories. "I had to confront these feelings myself, my need for validation and my fear of asking for help." As the conversation deepened, Missy's defenses began to soften. "I never knew you felt that way," she confessed. "I guess we're both just trying to figure this out one step at a time." Eleanor seized this moment and pressed further. "What if we turned this into a partnership? For every session we attend, we can share our fears, our excitement, and let the kids in on our process. I'm right there with you, learning as we go." As clarity washed over Missy's face, Eleanor recognized that they were forging mutual territory, one brimming with promise and potential.
Each conversation fostered an awareness of their shared humanity, the burdens of pride and identity loosening their grip on both women. Minutes morphed into moments, and after a heart-regenerating affirmations, history lingered around them like a soft hug. Missy's resolve started to fortify, creating space for more dialogues, courage replacing trepidation. "Okay, I'm willing to try," Missy said with a tentative smile. That approval strengthened Eleanor's spirit, affirming that their journey towards trust and understanding was truly unfolding. In the weeks that followed, the rhythm of their connection blossomed. Interaction shaping the environment where both Missy and her children felt supported but not overwhelmed. They participated in therapy sessions and workshops together, neither faltering nor retreating under the weight of self-doubt. They formed a network of communication fortified by mutual learning. Eleanor discovered that by empowering Missy, she also paved the way for her own growth. She watched as orange-beaming confidence emerged within Missy, transforming her interactions with Marco and Mia. They became a family united not by charity, but by friendship, a beacon of encouragement reflecting primal strength and bravery. One afternoon, as Eleanor helped Mia with a school project, Eleanor caught a glimpse of progress in Missy too. The woman she once approached with trepidation was now flourishing as a transformative force, and Eleanor reveled in that freedom. A tight-knit community of support blossomed around them. Conversations sometimes exploded into laughter, and at other times illuminated the complexities of shared struggles. Eleanor embraced these moments with understanding and perspective, recognizing that transformation was not linear. It was a journey sculpted by connections and growth. The passage of time brought Eleanor more than mere resolution. It imparted a profound sense of belonging she had long desired. She had faced her fears, embraced her vulnerabilities, and ventured beyond the confines of societal judgment. She stood side by side with the Johnsons, no longer a mentor on a pedestal, but a compatriot navigating the wild-hearted lands of life. As Eleanor observed the children playing, their laughter ringing like music amidst the remnants of old shadows, she felt a completeness consuming her spirit, a strength ardently woven through the community they had built together. Each step toward vulnerability was a triumphant nod to shared understanding, underscoring the significance of connection, affirmation, and growth. Eleanor had conquered her fears and transformed those doubts into fertile ground for growth, not just for herself, but for her newfound family. With renewed focus and solid confidence, she finally accepted her place, stretching beyond being perceived merely as a benefactor, now deeply rooted as part of something transformational. Today, she could boldly declare, there would be no more whispers of doubt. There was only space for support, acceptance, and an honored place among friends. Friends who understood the essence of connection. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories unfolding like this one.
Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your appreciation for these powerful journeys. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending, because your perspective matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this uplifting conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the impact of your support.